Yes.
It was something we could relate to, because we'd all been in a similar situation, maybe not quite that severe.
You got it. So it's something that you could relate to, and that's why I gave as much detail about the nervousness in the audience, that you're not so sure about whether they're going to respond well, because you can relate to that. If I was talking to a different audience, I wouldn't go into that much detail. Great, thanks for starting this off. What else? What else did you notice?
Well, laughter always wakes you up, so if you're concerned about people getting energized, laughter really energizes you.
You got it. So even though the story wasn't really germane to onboarding, it was sort of like a desperation, you know, something to boost the energy level. You got it. And so a story is a lot easier way to start off with humor than, hey, did you hear the one about some lame joke that everybody feels embarrassed for you? Right? Thanks. Yeah, what, yes?
The story also built up an emotional connection, because as we began to live it with you, we became wrapped up in your feelings that you had at that time.
Awesome, thank you. Absolutely. And that, what's your first name?
Bob.
All right, Bob. So that's part of telling the details of the story to connect with that emotional level. And that's one of the reasons why stories are so powerful as a change vehicle, because it's almost like a virtual reality machine, if you will. And a little bit later, I'll share with you, well, I'll tell it to you now, that one of the things that Chip and Dan Heath, authors of Made to Stick, which is an awesome book, describe with stories is that they provide both inspiration and simulation. So they create an experience where you feel like you're there. Good, it's a really good one. One or two others. Why else did I tell that story? Yes, Peggy.
I think it establishes vulnerability for the speaker too, so that if, and takes away that kind of stage on the stage specialness.
Yes, you've got it. And it shows your humanity, so there's a vulnerability. It's not like I am the supreme guru kind of thing, just another human being doing my thing just like you are. Good. Anything else? Yes.
And when we connect with the story and we get wrapped up in it, it brings our attention into the room, so that all of our anxieties about what to do for the day now become lost in the background as we become immersed in what you're saying here.
You got it. So you become immersed in the story, so you're not like, what do I have to do later on today? And also because you're immersed, it has a greater potential of not just learning, but change shift. And we'll talk a little bit later about using stories for that. Anything you noticed about the technique? Yes.
I loved your gesture. So, for example, when you were explaining Typhoid Mary, you were, you know, tuning in direction,
Okay.
like, oh,
So
yeah,
using
you
the
painted the
dog,
picture
yeah.
very well.
Oh, good, thanks. Yes.
It was also very honest. We could tell that you weren't putting on any airs. It was just coming from you.
Thank you. Yeah. And I'm glad, what's your name?
Nadine.
Nadine. I'm glad Nadine brought up the honesty thing, because I think one of the times people get nervous about storytelling is they're afraid to have to be some sort of, like John Lovitz in SNL, like I'm acting, you know, how, like that melodramatic, or tell stories about long, long ago and far away. It's like you already do storytelling. It's like what you tell people when something cool happened on vacation. You got it. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think too, we didn't see the microphone coming, so that made it special. Like, we could already relate to you having a runny nose, and that seemed like bad enough. And then all of a sudden we find out, oh no, it's worse.
It goes from bad to worse. Oh, I love that. And I'm hoping we get to the point about using surprise, the not see it coming, as a technique for helping people challenge limiting beliefs. So neat. One other thing is, if you notice, and I hope to do it again in another story, is when I shared about my little angst about my first keynote, and I said something about maybe you've had experiences about the opportunities to ratchet your career up to another level. That's actually a language pattern that I learned from Dr. Milton Erickson, well, actually his students, because he had passed away by the time I came on the scene, who was probably the most amazing hypnotist of all time. He's a psychiatrist unbelievable healer. And he used storytelling as a hypnotic vehicle. And one of the language patterns that he would use as he would tell stories to really draw people in and help them connect the story with whatever was relevant to them was what I call connecting phrases. So instead of me simply telling my story, I pause at times and I say, maybe you can, you've had your own version of such and such, or maybe there's, actually I'm going to tell you a story right now where I'll use that. And I'll actually, rather than telling you, watch it happen, look out for it. One of the other reasons though why I told that story and why I love starting off with stories, it helped me shift my emotional state. From feeling a little stiff and still, the 3 shots of espresso hadn't kicked in yet, to feeling like, oh, it's like hanging out with an old buddy, like, hey, how you doing, dude? This story is a friend of mine. And so, especially if you're working, with a group where you're, maybe not feeling totally at home, if you share a story because you've lived it, it's not like, how do I say this in a good way? Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know how some of you are. It takes a lot of work for me to actually speak, to put words coherently together. And so that's one of the reasons why I love stories, because you don't have to really think about it. It's like you lived it. Okay, so one of the other values of storytelling is it shifts emotional state. So I want to give you an example of that and then a chance for you to experience it.